And as we said, when you get to the point where you've done that pass and you go, okay, I have 4 days left before I have to deliver this thing. What do I want to do? What do I have to do? I have to do some dialogue work. Okay, do that next. I have to do this. If I have time and I come back to this sequence, I want to do some Foley, some bigger Foley than production sound there, because it'll make it sound more painful. But if you don't have time and the director comes in and listens, there is something there. You have done something. You've done something for everything. You've done the best work, the most important work first. And if he wants extra things, you could say, fine, I need another day, or I need a few more hours to do that, or I need to get somebody to do that. I need to pay somebody to do that. So we call it cutting the cloth. You cut the cloth to suit to suit the measurements. And if they're only giving you so many measurements, you can only cut so much cloth. And so it's very important to be focused on what you can do to make a difference. So we always start every film with an effects template, and this is the technical side. So stop me at any point for me to clarify what it is I'm talking about, because it's taken years of adjusting, tweaking, making a different version of the same thing. How many monos do you have? How many stereos do you have? So I'll go very slow. I don't want to sound patronising, but it confuses me as well, so I can understand it's a lot to take on, unless you weren't like this anyway, which would be fantastic. Okay, so what we have, and I think it's better to show you in the edit window, but I can show you in the mix window as well if you want to see it. What we have are groups. I try and keep it down to 8 mono and 4 stereo tracks in what is a group. That's group A. This system was B because we had 2 effects systems running for this particular reel because of the bike chase and the underwater chase. So we have a dead track here. This doesn't do anything. This is just a marker track, and that highlights what that group is. This is group B, session B, group A. There's session B. You can't really see on this screen, but that says B with a small a, track 1, M for mono. Track 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then BA1 stereo. Now normally on any other normal production, even big productions, you would only have 1 effects session and you wouldn't have BA. You just have, this is group A, the next one's group B, so it would be A1 stereo, A2 stereo. Okay, so each track is set as a 5/0 output. So when you go onto the fader, this group has a bus, a 5/0 bus. So each output, that mono is coming out of a 5/0. So it means that I can pan all those mono tracks around the room as much as I like. And all these tracks are routed, their outputs are through a bus that is on an input, this track here, this bus input, and that's a 5/0 bus. So that's coming into here, and then it's coming out of my output, which is my 5/1 or 5/0 path. We tend to work in 5/0s, or if it's 7/1 film, we tend to work in 5/0 or 7/0. And then all the LFE tracks are independent mono tracks, and those are all routed through to the sub. They're not part of we don't do it in 5/1s and 7/1s because we very rarely use the LFE track. We tend to EQ or generate our own subsonic tracks and lay them up within the 5/0 or 7/0. So with each group that's routed into that bus, that's A bus. We apply a VCA to that group as well, and that runs underneath. And that VCA, what happens is that as we go through the process and we're laying up our tracks, as you can see here, we've got little tracks, little bits and pieces. Because this is now a group, all those tracks are a group. If I just solo the VCA, it mutes everything else in the session. All the other groups are muted, and it just solos all the tracks in that group. So when it's really quick to be able to solo all those tracks individually as one group. And then what I'll do is I'll lay those tracks up, and I'll go through and I'll level adjust each of them. And we use clip gain more now for level adjusting than volume graphing, because clip gain means that it's kind of the way it's going to arrive at the mix. And the mixer can't look at it and go, oh, you've got all that automation on there, take it off, I want it. So we can get our balances how we want them. And then the VCA will give us our volume automation on an overview. So this session is how we started this sequence. The parachutists are all visual effects, so they came in very late. But they were always laid up. We always knew they were going to be there. And as we went through, we mixed it using the VCA just to give ourselves a slight adjustment to those effects within the effects on the other buses. And we tend to work so that we start with our spot effects at the first bus, second bus, third bus, fourth bus doesn't look like it's very much. But it gives us enough separation to be able to play with the sounds that make up one thing, but they might be, in this case, 4 stereos, which is just the sweetener for the parachute. So that, tied in with our bus 1, should then give us the full effect. I don't know why they're so far away. But they are. But they'll stay like that for the whole duration, and literally the tweaks that we do as we go through, from the beginning, the first day of track laying, right the way through until the print master and the final day of mixing. This session stays like this, and all the mixing that happens to this session stays in this session. It's all mixed in the box. So we use our reverbs, our EQ, every channel, we put channel strip on.
Do you use Stemixes for?
Nope.
No, you really import the session data and...
Yeah, everything is absolutely what we call live, it's all in the box. So all the automation for the EQ, all the automation for the compression, for the reverbs. On each of the buses we have these sends. So there are 4 sends for each bus, and those sends go down to our 4 reverbs. So we have, in this case, we've been using Verb Surround with Phoenix. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 different verbs. They've all probably got the medium chamber, there's forest, there's small chamber. They're all different. But each one of those sends will send that bus's audio down to these individual reverbs, and that way, when we're conforming, i.e. when the picture's changed and it's come back to us, and we have to recut the sounds to match the cut on the picture, we now have to conform the sound effects, the automation that goes with them, the VCA automation, the reverb automation, the plug-in automation, everything has to be conformed. So what we find is that clip gain is better because it doesn't, when you cut the track, it doesn't make a new node and send the volume automation back up to 0 or down to -20. It just stays the same level always. And that saves a huge amount of complications when you're conforming.
Do you do that by hand, or do you use something like Eddie Load or
for conforming.
Yeah.
So, as a rule, most effects editors would rather do it by hand because they know that if the conformalizer, we use maggot conformalizer is the thing at the moment. There was Virtual Katie for a while, but Maggot's better and easier to use. So what happens is we'll run the program and it will conform the tracks and it'll send the original version 1 hour down the line, and then it'll conform all the edit tracks there. So you can see, or you can do it the other way around, you can choose. But then you can see where the changes are. And what we find most useful is conform the guide tracks. So you have, they're not in here at the moment, but you have the picture, the dialogue, mono, stereo effects, stereo music. Those are the guide tracks as supplied by the Avid. And we get them to conform the guide tracks so that we can see very clearly at the top of the session, oh, there's a cut here, they've made a change. There's a cut here, they've made a change. And we can compare with the new picture and the old picture where they've made changes. And then with backgrounds, obviously, they're very easy. But if you've got a clock ticking in the background and you have to conform it, it's a nightmare. You've got to do. So you know that you've just got to extend the clock to the end and don't try and fix it.
So you look at the waveform from the guide track?
We look at the edits, just the edits. So if there's an edit and the picture's been tightened, we can see clearly. If there's an edit and there's a space, then we know that it's been extended. But it just gives us an indication. And if we then just listen A and B between the two, so we just listen to one and the other and make sure that they're working. A lot of effects editors like to do it because they know that the scene that they've created is very cut dependent, so it works with the picture cuts very heavily, and therefore they would rather retrack laying it using the same material but retrack lay it in the right time.
So most of the time EDS don't help you?
Not for effect. Some effects editors love it, the ones I really rate don't. The ones I rate you do it by hand. It's a very brutal process, and if you've got a film with lots of visual effects, often there are visual effects edits that don't make any difference to us whatsoever. We've already got the sound in there. The fact that it's now, the visual effect has moved slightly internally, the cut's the same but the internal edits are different, can make our life hell. So we would rather have a visual stroke sound reference with the guide tracks and then say, okay, that doesn't affect us, that does, we need to do that. And it's a bit mind numbing in terms of what you actually have to go through to do it, but it's one of the jobs that I have to do with a big crew. One of the things that I have to be aware of all the time is, and my dialogue with the editor is, okay, do we need to go to this version? Is there going to be another version next week or tomorrow?